Executive Order number 34. I make a motion that this committee meeting agenda constitutes essential business of the Metropolitan Council and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in, anybody opposed, please raise your hands. See anything? So the motion passes. This is the meeting of the Parks, Library, and Arts on Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2020. We have a few resolutions on here. The first one is Resolution RS 2020-342, O'Connell, Mendez, and others. Accepts an in-kind grant from the Historic Capital Corridor Foundation to the Metropolitan Nashville Parks and Recreation Department for improvements to and programming for the Church Street Park. Is Mr. O'Connell online?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
All right. Would you like to explain it and what your position is on it today?
I'd be happy to. Thank you for the opportunity to do so, and thank you, committee members. So this one really caught me by surprise. I spent 4 years deeply involved in first problem solving and then listening to community concerns about Church Street Park. I had surprising difficulty getting the Barry and Briley administration sufficiently engaged in comprehensive solutions there. And what happened was a development proposal emerged to solve some of the problems. I honestly wasn't, my personal take on this is I just want to move past a place where the park does not equitably serve all of the residents or the library patrons or whatever as high quality urban green space. And in fact, what I want to have is an outcome where all of our urban parks are effectively managed by Metro Parks and or community partners. Now, what happened as a part of that was that the Hermitage Hotel Group grew very concerned about this and formed a foundation, which it surprises me to learn that the Cooper administration has apparently tapped to lead the visioning efforts for the park. And, we wound up the conversation last term with Metro Planning, recommending that we actually have an open, transparent, accept any kind of proposals from green space to redevelopment to whatever anybody wanted to bring to the table for credible idea sourcing and have that be an open process. And now here we are with this resolution that the administration never contacted me about, a plan that has not received any kind of meaningful public input. And I am reluctant to move it forward until I get some key questions asked. I have had difficulty getting the administration to, connect this to other events. I mean, I understand this looks like a potentially short-term project, but the structure of it as an in-kind grant, I absolutely validate the Hotel Group's perspective as a critical stakeholder, as an adjacent property owner, but they're not the only one. And I think this needs to get to a much more transparent place. So I would request, please, that colleagues on this committee defer this to our June 16th meeting.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Second. So moved.
All right. Anybody opposed, please raise your hands. Gloria Hauser. Ms. Hauser, are you there? Hang on. Well, evidently she's still on here. She had her hand raised. All right. Motion passes. We'll defer it for one meeting.
Could we have any further discussion?
Yeah, do I have a second? Sorry. Thanks for correcting me.
Yes, I had seconded Chair Hager.
Okay. All right. Anybody opposed, please raise your hands. I want to make it clear.
I'm not opposed. I would just wonder if we could have further discussion, or do we need to vote first?
Yeah, Council, point of order. Council Lady Hancock is asking for discussion on the motion to defer.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Hancock.
Thank you. Well, so this was on the Parks Board meeting in May, and it was explained at the Parks Board meeting as being an effort by the Hermitage Hotel to fund sort of a decorative, nothing permanent landscaping and some films to be shown in coordination with the women's suffrage, 100th anniversary to vote. And as that kind of coincided with, I think, some other events that are planned at Centennial Park, I think that's why the parks approved it. We can all go back and watch that film to be sure. I have no problem deferring. I just wanted to give some more information.
Thank you, Councilmember Hancock. I appreciate that. I think as the sponsor and person who's responsible for this area, though, there has been no communication with me. And in fact, I could not get any information from the administration about how this was connected to the suffrage process and whether even the suffrage organizations were aware of this proposal.
Understood.
Well, I'm the one that passed, the ordinance to allow the female skydivers at Centennial Park. And talking to Alma Salford, I have not heard anything about the use of the Church Street Park myself. So I don't know what's so pressing about it that it can't be deferred one meeting, but if somebody would communicate that to me, it'd be different, but nobody has. Am I correct, Mr. O'Connell?
You are absolutely correct.
Okay. So any more discussion about the deferral from anybody else? Okay. All in favor of deferral?
Councilman Hager, this is Danielle. Mike Jameson has his hand up. I don't know if he was looking to be recognized to speak on this.
Mike Jameson? Mr. Jameson there?
Yes, sir, Chair. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me, Chair Hager?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Our request was that if possible, because of the 3 meetings that we had in June, that if there was a 1 meeting deferral, it'd be to June 9th, with the understanding that if we could not convene the stakeholders convenient to Councilman O'Connell's schedule, we would certainly understand an additional deferral on June 9th. The improvements themselves certainly do not preclude any other design or improvements in coming months or years, but they are important to the celebration of the suffrage events that will be conducted there in mid-August. And so if they could simply get phase 1 of those improvements, which again are not going to be immovable or to the detriment of other future designs, at least get that started so that the park essentially looks presentable, if you will, for that event. Again, if we can't convene the stakeholders to Councilman O'Connell's satisfaction and get the answers that he requires by, say, June 8th, we would certainly understand an additional deferral after that. I would just ask the council's patience in recognizing what the last 2 months have been, not just for the council, but for the administration, and ask for your indulgence in, again, a deferral, but just a deferral to June 9th rather than June 16th to see if we can get this information to the satisfaction of the council member. And again, if we can't, an additional deferral would be certainly understood, but if we can just have that chance.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilman O'Connell, are you okay with the June 9th deferral?
Mr. Chair, frankly, I think that even notwithstanding the the situation that I know that everybody has been dealing with, from a tornado to COVID-19 to recent civil unrest, I am still just struck that we have not had any of this occur in a transparent way. I mean, we've known that 2020 was going to be a suffrage event for quite some time. In fact, we took action as a council last term to rename Ann Dallas Dudley Boulevard in anticipation of that. And it just troubles me I worry that there are some other things here, and I think it's going to be more important. I can't imagine that one extra week really throws this off this much. I think having the space to really do a little bit more exploration here at 1 week, I can't imagine just completely throws off the ability to get that park into good shape, considering that we saw almost no action there for 4 years. So I think one extra week isn't going to hurt things, and I'd still stick with my recommendation to the committee for a deferral to June 16th.
Any other discussion from anybody else? Okay. All in favor of a deferral till June the 16th?
There was another hand up, I think. Was that Jeff Syracuse?
No, he didn't have his up.
I'm sorry, I thought that's what he said. It was.
Mr. Chair, it looks like Councilmember Hauser has her hand up, but she can't unmute apparently.
I know I've tried to get a hold of her, and evidently something's wrong. I don't know what's going on with her. Okay, let's do it this way. All in favor? Let's see, we got June 16th deferral. We got a second on it. If you're against the June 16th deferral, raise your hand. I don't see any hands against it. Now, is anybody in favor of deferring it just till June the 9th?
Chair, this council member Van Reese, I'm on phone only, so I don't have the ability to raise my hand, but I prefer June the 9th.
Okay. So I have one in favor of June the 9th, and the rest of the members of the committee are voting for June the 16th. Do I have any other changes in the vote there?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. What the motion before us is a deferral to June 16th.
16th.
Right. So June 9th is kind of moot at this point, right? Since that's not before us.
All right. Then, you're correct. So it will be passed, deferred until June the 16th per the vote. Any other discussion? Okay, let's get to the next resolution. RS 2020, Syracuse, Mendez, and others accepts a grant package from the Friends of Two Rivers Mansion to the Metro Nashville Parks and Recreation Department to provide partial funding for one administrative support person and funding for 2 part-time employees to conduct historic tours during June, July, and August and the Christmas 2020 season at Two Rivers Mansion. I have a letter to approve from Mr. Mendez. Jeff Syracuse, do you have any enlightenment to this resolution?
No, sir. I just move approval. This is similar to what we've done in the past, say, 5 or 6 years. And the Friends of Two Rivers Mansion is proud to support more revenue generating opportunities at the mansion. Thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Moved. Second.
Any discussion? All right. Anybody that's not in favor, please raise your hand.
Chair, I'd raise my hand regarding discussion. This is Councilwoman Henderson.
All right.
I just have a question for the sponsor, please. Councilman Syracuse, over the past few years, we've had some questions around positions funded by friends groups and sometimes the long-term implications of that, whether that's for, pension or OPEB and various things. And so absolutely grateful for our friends groups and them supporting extra staff, but I just wanted to make sure that this was not kind of contractually having any implications beyond just to Metro, the acceptance of support for that position, and does not obligate us to any long-term costs. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, this is the same exact thing as we've done in the past. No change, and it's just for those temporary spots or opportunities.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. I know we talked about like seasonal at Christmas and different things, and I was just wondering if this was a more kind of ongoing position, and even if so, just wanted to make sure it was there, because there's been some concern around fairness about, you know, some friends groups doing it in certain ways, long-term obligations for Metro, and I just want to kind of, we've pressed the reset button on that, and I just want to make sure that all our friends groups are, again, we're grateful for them all, but that we're dealing with all those kind of fairly and across the board. So I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody opposed, please raise your hand. I see none opposed, so the resolution passes 8-4-0 against. Next resolution, RS 2020-344, Withers, Mendez, and others, accepts an in-kind grant from the Friends of Shelby Park and Bottoms to the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation to provide various improvements to Shelby Park and the Bottoms. I have a letter from Councilman Mendez. I do have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Okay. Anybody against, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. It passes 8-4-0 against. Next resolution, 2020-345, Mendez, Hager, and Hancock. A resolution approving amendment 1 to a grant from the Friends of Warner Parks to the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation to provide Wi-Fi and a copier for the Warner Parks headquarters. I have a letter from Mendez to approve. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All right, anybody not in favor, please raise your hands. I see no hands raised. It passes 8-4-0 against. Resolution 2020-346, Syracuse, Mendez, and others, accepts an in-kind grant from the Two Rivers Golf Association and Two Rivers Senior Golf Association to the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation to construct a new bridge on the Two Rivers Golf Course from the cart path to the white tee box on the 5th hole. I have a letter from Councilman Mendez. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. All those against, please raise your hands. I see no hands raised. It passes 8-4-0 against. Next is BL 2020-227, authorized the granting of permanent and temporary construction easement to Piedmont Natural Gas on certain property owned by Metropolitan government. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do you have any discussion?
Chair Hager, this is Councilwoman Henderson.
Yes.
I see Councilman Withers still present. Is this the matter of concern in Shelby Park? Council Lady Allen and Councilman Withers perhaps wanted to address the issues around mature trees, or I felt that one had already potentially been addressed. It came through Public Works. Is this another use of parks by Piedmont Gas?
This is Councilmember Withers. May I address the committee?
Yes. Go ahead.
The one question that I had, this is work that was actually done in 2017 when Piedmont was rebuilding natural gas service, kind of from the Casey Homes area It actually connects, they drilled under the Cumberland River, they drilled down under Davidson Street and built some infrastructure in a little pocket of Shelby Park next to another utility that was already there. So this work was actually done in 2017. What this, for whatever reason, back in those days, all the paperwork didn't get done. We have been waiting for a couple of years to accept $225,000 in compensation for that from Piedmont. That's what this resolution does. The reason why it was re-referred to the committee is that the final vote on that by the Parks Board was supposed to happen today, and I'm not certain. I don't know if any staff were present to know what happened at the Parks Board committee today. So, I mean, but that is what this pertains to for work that's already constructed.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification, and I'm glad to see that we're being compensated. I know that construction meant the loss of quite a few mature trees, as best I understand.
Not in that area. That was an open field area. There was some, as it came across an adjacent property, there was some clearing of trees right in that area, but that was in an adjacent property. And also that was part of the plans for that is that as that is constructed, that we will be able at some point through an easement across that to construct a like a boardwalk, pedestrian and bike path that goes along Davidson Street and without having to remove the historic gate to the parks. So that's what that was. So there was some degree of concern about trees in 2017, but those trees were actually on private property through a private easement.
Understood. I appreciate the clarification, and also appreciate our utility partners compensating the Metro government appropriately for the use of municipal land. And so, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is anybody opposed? Please raise your hands.
Chair, I do have my hand up for a question.
Yeah, sure.
Just to follow up, wondering if we have someone from the parks staff or board on the line that can tell us in regards to if the board voted on this today before we take a vote on this.
Weathers or Mike Jameson?
I'm sorry, Chair, can you repeat that question?
She wanted to know if there's any, they went to the Parks Board today, if it was approved by the Parks Board. Do we know or don't know?
I do not have that information yet from Director Odom.
Okay. Ms. Hancock, were you at the meeting?
I was, and I do not recall this on today's agenda. I think it would be on the March agenda, right? Since it came over to us for first reading then, or early April. It's hard, they're running together now.
Okay.
This is from Withers. It was on the acquisition committee's agenda as well as the regular Parks Board agenda for today, but it was this afternoon and I wasn't able to be present for that. I'm trying to find an update on it.
Chair Hager, I believe we have Ms. White. Ms. White, are you representing the Parks Department?
I am. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, yes, it was on the Parks agenda today, and it was approved. It was on the acquisition committee and on our board agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, seeing nobody opposed, this is 4-0 against. And that concludes our agenda of the Parks, Library and Arts Committee. Appreciate everybody attending, and we'll see you in a little while. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. White. Thanks.